Hello, Facebook world. Woo! We have to start with a lot of energy because we're talking about tax. And I know that tax day is Monday, right? Right, Jennifer?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, income tax day.
Yes, income tax day is Monday. And that isn't why I wanted to have this conversation. But, first, before we kind of jump into this, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of who you are, who TaxJar is?
For sure. So I'm Jennifer Dunn. I'm Chief of Content at TaxJar. So Chief of Content, fancy title. All that means is I am responsible for every word that comes out of TaxJar. So I write TaxJar's blog posts, any white papers, any emails you might get from TaxJar. It is all me. And also I'm our Chief of Community. So if you're in our Facebook group or you ever see us online, then that's going to be me as well. So, chances are if you've interacted with TaxJar, you have interacted with me, and I'm happy to see you here.
So Jennifer, what does TaxJar do? Why would I as a seller use TaxJar? And then I'm getting into I'm just letting some people kind of come online. Then I'm going to get into some really deep questions that I have that I think Amazon sellers have.
Awesome. Deep questions are my favorite kind. I live and breathe sales tax, believe it or not. So what TaxJar does is if you are taking too long to file your sales tax returns, say, it's taking you 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. A lot of our customers say sales tax takes them 5 hours every taxable period. Then TaxJar makes that easy for you. We'll connect with Amazon. We'll connect with the other shopping carts that you sell on. Maybe you have your own shopping cart. You sell on Shopify. You sell on eBay, Etsy. We'll connect with all of those. We'll create your return-ready sales tax report to make your sales tax filing easy. Or if you just never want to look at a sales tax return again, we will auto-file your sales tax for you for just $19.95 per filing.
All right, here we go. Ready?
I'm ready. Ask the hard questions.
Okay, so here we go. First question. Amazon changed as of April 1st. They are now collecting sales tax in all states that have Nexus. So let's start off, let's define Nexus, and then let's define kind of what that means for Amazon sellers. And, the question I have is, does that change actually affect third-party sellers, or does that really affect me as a buyer on the Amazon channel? So that's where I'm a little confused.
For sure. Okay, I'm going to put everybody's mind at ease first. As a third-party seller, this does not affect you. So Amazon deciding to collect sales tax in every state with a sales tax, which is 45 U.S. states, is an Amazon.com issue and a decision. So basically, sales tax nexus is when you have a significant presence in a state. Amazon has a significant presence, and that means an employee, an office, inventory, and warehouse, salespeople. Nexus can be different things depending on the state. Amazon has Nexus in probably 20-something-ish, 30 states. So they definitely don't have Nexus in every state. But states and the federal government is turning the pressure up on these big e-commerce sellers like Amazon to collect sales tax in more states. So Amazon just decided, you know what, we're building a lot of fulfillment centers. We're hiring new people in different states. One of these days we will probably be like Walmart and have sales tax nexus, some kind of significant presence in every state. So we might as well go ahead and comply so these states will get off our backs about collecting sales tax in every state. But keep in mind, that's Amazon.com and the products that they sell. So you guys as FBA sellers, you still have Nexus just in the states where you have an office, you have an employee, a contractor, where you make sales at a trade show, where your inventory is stored. You still only have Nexus in the places that you had Nexus March 31st, if that makes sense. And Jeff, if you need me to clarify any of that, I'm happy to. I know it gets a little complicated.
Yeah, this is where I want people to start kind of interacting here and asking questions because, so I'm going to give you my kind of interpretation of that. So as an Amazon seller, just because Amazon has Nexus doesn't mean that I have Nexus. And so how do I, as an Amazon seller, know where I have Nexus?
Awesome. Good question. So as an Amazon seller, you have Nexus in states where your inventory is stored. So that means, say, it's a weird example. Say you only sell kayaks. So a lot of times there's a Connecticut fulfillment center that they have a lot of kayaks and grills and giant TVs and stuff like that. So you may have sales tax nexus, that significant presence in your home state and in Connecticut where all your kayak inventory is stored. But say you sell media, you may have sales tax nexus in a whole bunch of states because Amazon, they transship that media from warehouse to warehouse. Now, the way you can go into Amazon and look and see where your items are stored, there's a report called the Inventory Event Detail Report. It's pretty, you have to look at it day by day to see where your inventory is. It's a little bit difficult to actually tell where your inventory is. And you can also, there's a company called WhereStock, WHERE stock.com. You can try that and they'll tell you where your inventory is sitting. Or TaxJar, of course, will tell you where your inventory is sitting as well.
Okay, so where, stock.com?
Yeah. They're a paid service. They're not affiliated at all with TaxJar, but they're a pretty simple way to check and see where you have inventory.
All right, this is where I think I get confused. Amazon, I'm selling on Amazon. Amazon tells me to, I've signed up. When I signed up originally for Amazon, I only picked, I'll use myself as an example. I only used Illinois as my state nexus because I live in Illinois. I go to ship my first order into Amazon and my product go to a warehouse in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I am theoretically supposed to go back into Amazon now and say, I have Nexus in Tennessee and notify Amazon that I did that, correct?
Okay, so yes, if you have inventory sitting for sale in Tennessee, you can go over to Tennessee's Department of Revenue, look at their sales tax law, and they'll say, the inventory for sale in a state is create sales tax nexus. So then don't go into Amazon yet, though. That's where I want to stop you. Before you ever collect sales tax, you need to register for a sales tax permit. So you would need to register in the state of Illinois where you live, like your body being in a state creates sales tax nexus. That's you working in your business creating nexus. But then also you would need to register in Tennessee. So always do that before you collect sales tax. But then yes, once you have that Tennessee sales tax number in hand, you would go into the back end, your tax settings of Amazon and tell them, yes, I want to collect sales tax in both Illinois and in Tennessee.
All right. So this is where I think it gets confusing. So first off, we had a question. The question was, can you repeat where I can find Seller Central in inventory? So what's the name of that report again?
It's called the Inventory Event Detail Report. You can Google that. If you Google that and TaxJar, you will probably find our blog post that has a step-by-step guide to finding that.
All right. Gonna put this up there for people to see. I think there's a way for me to. I think I broke the system. Okay.
That's good. That's good.
So, all right. So I mail my inventory so Amazon says, send your inventory to Tennessee. I now, as a seller, have to go identify whether Tennessee is somewhere that I have Nexus.
Yes.
Then I have to make my own determination as to the Nexus rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to file for state taxes in Tennessee.
A sales tax permit.
A sales tax permit. Then I need to tell Amazon that they should start collecting the tax in that state.
Yes.
Okay. So, how many of you on Facebook currently do this? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Just curious. How many of you currently on Facebook that are listening do this every time you ship inventory in? Because I believe you don't.
And you can answer honestly, and I'm also
Craig,
keeping your mind.
You're the first one to answer, so I'm going to give you a shirt. Craig's going to get a shirt for being the first to answer. So remind me. Lots of no, I don'ts.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, for sure.
So one of the things I've learned from this is that when this happens, when I get Nexus in a state, and the easiest states to know that you have Nexus in are the ones you ship products to. Yes. Because you shipped your product there, you created Nexus.
Yes.
We'll get to seller fulfilled in a second, Mark. That's a great point. We'll get to that in a second. I now have shipped my stuff to Tennessee. I now have to read through Tennessee's laws and make my own determination of Nexus. If I don't do this, let's say I've been selling on Amazon for a year, mm-hmm. and I've only been paying in Illinois. I need to do something like go to stock.com, understand where my inventory has been, and then I now need to do what?
Okay, so there are a few things that you can do. And so everybody at TaxJar has owned a business in the past. Most of us have been e-commerce sellers. So we're going to tell you like what people really do instead of what the letter of the law says. The letter of the law in Tennessee would say you need to tell Tennessee that you had sales tax nexus the day that you shipped something to Tennessee, and then pay any back taxes and penalties that you had to pay. So that's what Tennessee would say. But we work with a lot of CPAs, we've been business owners ourselves. And so a lot of times CPAs say, look, you want to get compliant right now, go register with Tennessee, tell them you had sales tax nexus starting today. Most of the time they're not going to, go look at you and be like, oh, we don't think you had sales tax nexus starting today. We think you lied. Like they don't have time, they're not going to do that unless, you're acting very, very shady, which is kind of hard to do. And then start, collecting sales tax from that point forward. A third thing you can do. So say you're a billion dollar seller and you should have collected $10,000 in Tennessee. You're really worried that if Tennessee were to find you that you didn't collect that $10,000 last year in Tennessee, that they would audit you. And so the audit, it's like penalties and interest for each quarter or month that you didn't file. And then interest. And interest can be anywhere from like a small, like 2 or 3% to 18%. It just kind of depends. So the audit, so you might look and say, oh my gosh, if I got audited and Tennessee found that I didn't pay this $10,000, I would owe, $15,000 now. And that would really just kill my business and put a hamper on me. Another thing you could do is work with a CPA to get a voluntary disclosure agreement. And the CPA, what they do is they'll call Tennessee and they're like, hey, we know a guy. We're not going to tell you what his name is, but he owes you guys $10,000 in sales tax. What if he pays, $9,000 or $5,000? Just try to work with them. And then he continues to comply from that point forward. Would you, not give him all these penalties and interest? And so a lot of times they can do a deal with the state. And so I know people are going to be like, oh my gosh, that sounds very scary. So one thing I also want to talk about is materiality. So say you've been selling on Amazon for a year. You should have collected $5 in sales tax in Tennessee. You hardly made any sales in Tennessee. It may not be worth your while to register for a sales tax permit in Tennessee and start collecting. It may actually be more trouble for you to, collect that $5 per year and file sales tax returns in Tennessee than it is if Tennessee ever catches you. They're probably not going to go after you because you're a small, tiny fish. But if they do go after you, say you owe them, you owe them $15 the past 3 years in sales tax in Tennessee. Well, you got to pay that fine every quarter or month you didn't pay. That could be like $50. And then you have a little bit of interest, like 3 to 18% kind of variable interest. Still, there's going to be a few $100.
I'm going to cut you off here because this is kind of like when I talked to Brandon. And yes. This is kind of like when I talk to Brandon and he starts getting into coding and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like way past what I need to deal with as an Amazon seller. You're in this larger world now of like your world, right? And it's awesome that you know your world, but I don't want to confuse people here by taking them so deep that they get confused. Because I think we as sellers really want to know kind of the super high level. And so let me see if I can sum it up, and then if you can kind of agree with me. When you're a seller, you need to understand where your inventory is at. And you need to understand that your inventory is not always where you shipped it, right? That's one of the tricky things that I think sellers don't always understand is that you send your inventory to Tennessee, but then they send the inventory to 5 other locations. So all of a sudden you have Nexus in Pennsylvania, but you never ship the product to Pennsylvania.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. And so I think that's something that that we all kind of, okay. So every once in a while you need to do this audit, the wherestock.com. Then you've got your list of kind of everywhere that your stock is at. Now I need to go hire a CPA. I mean, is that something TaxJar can do? Is that something I can do? I mean, this sounds like a total pain in my ass. I mean, I'm sorry to not beat around the bush, but I warned you I was going to be real, right? Oh yeah, no, it is a pain in the ass for sure. So you got to kind of think about like Amazon, they take a lot of the work away from you on, fulfillment and customer service, logistics and stuff like that. So it is a little bit of a trade-off. Like
sticking all your inventory in warehouses all over the place creates sales tax nexus for you. So it's just a bit of like a trade-off. But, you know, I know you wanted me to get out of that subject to materiality, Jeff, and when to register, but just think about it. Now, if you only owe $5 in Tennessee, do you want to bother to register in Tennessee? So just everybody keep that in mind. Like, I don't want to scare everybody and think you have to run out and register in 23 states right now. Amazon has fulfillment centers.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the no. So I don't think you need to register. And I just posted a list of Amazon fulfillment center codes because Amazon kind of gives you it all in codes. So I just posted a list. Thank you, Peter Kearns, for sharing that with me. We have to kind of decide, like, you guys as a group can't provide tax advice, right? Because that's not what you do. But we as Amazon sellers have to have some kind of general rule that we know that says, hey, if your sales are over this in Tennessee, if they're over this in Missouri, if they're over this in Illinois, you should start worrying about taxes. The issue that I have, the issue or the concern that I have is very similar to the one that Julie posted on here. And what Julie posted on here was that she said, I just have a notice for a tax period in 2015. Why are you getting that now? And what I'm hearing, the buzz that I'm hearing is that, and this came up at Prosper, right? This came up at the Prosper show, that the states are starting to use websites like marketpulse.com to determine who big Amazon sellers are. And they're starting to identify who these sellers are and start tracking whether they're paying tax or not. That the states are actively going after, and I can't prove this one way or another. This was just a conversation that happened at Prosper. It was a presentation, but that the states are becoming more aggressive, that they now have 50% of their revenue now that Amazon is starting to collect it, right? So Amazon basically made whole with every state, and they're collecting sales tax moving forward. Their next kind of, I guess, bullet to come out of the gun is going to sellers, because third-party marketplace sellers on Amazon represent 50%, 45% of the sales. So there's a lot of sales tax that's there. And so as a seller, I have to kind of figure out at what point does this become a liability to my business? Because I can kind of ignore it for a while, because you're right. A lot of these states, I'm not going to have, it's not just that your inventory is there. You also have to have sales there, right? So I don't owe anything to Tennessee because I have inventory in Tennessee. I only owe money to Tennessee if I have inventory in Tennessee and somebody buys a product in Tennessee, right?
Exactly.
Then the other thing that I think, I'm trying to validate my own thoughts here, but the other thing that is part of my belief is that so I have to have inventory and I have to have a sale. The government, state or whatever, doesn't care whether I actually collected the taxes or not. And so the liability is that Tennessee comes after me 2 years from now and they want all of my back taxes. I never collected the taxes. I never remitted the taxes. So therefore, I'm now taking bottom line profit out of my business to pay for this tax liability that I had. So if you were to give kind of a wake up advice, right? Like, at what point does a seller have to really take this a little bit more real? You know, is there a number, like if you're doing 10,000 a month, you better spend more time on this, or, you know?
Great questions. So first of all, like, I just don't like to scare anybody. I just don't like to be scary. So I'm going to give you a wake up call, but I just want to preface that by saying that I'm not trying to scare you in everything I'm telling you. Like, TaxJar can help with. If you don't want to use TaxJar, we can point you in the right direction to people that can help you with that. So yes, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple or 2 or 3 weeks ago now talking about how states are now understanding about Amazon FBA. And since, you know, they've kind of had a win with Amazon, now they're going to start going after Amazon FBA sellers. I talked to somebody in, oh gosh, I believe it was January now, who the state of Washington sent her a letter saying, hey, you know, we think you owe sales tax Nexus, or sales tax. She lives somewhere else. And when she wrote back and said, oh, no, I don't think so, they said, well, let us see your inventory event detail report from Amazon. So that's the only time I've ever heard of this. But the state of Washington, at least, knows that, hey, you know, this information is out there. The problem is the states, they share information with each other. So Washington knows this, then California is going to know this pretty soon.
Yeah, and I've heard rumor that there are companies. We're not one of them. And there's really not. They're not in the Amazon space that are helping states link up sellers and helping the states collect it, and they're probably getting some kind of commission for the data that they're providing. But that was kind of one of the rumors that I heard, was that, you know, the states that there are companies, that there was this tax conference, and this was a big part of this tax conference. I had a conversation with the guy who did the presentation at Prosper, and that a lot of these states, they all, like you said, they all follow what each other does. And that if somebody can start to link sellers, the states are willing to kind of go after them, because there's a lot of money that's there. Now, I want to give kind of an example. So I used to run a website called textbooks.com. Textbooks.com was a subsidiary of Barnes & Noble. And I remember back in like 1997, remember back then? I think there was a thing called dial-up we used to get on the internet. That's really when they started looking at TaxNexus. And in 2007, 10 years later, Barnes & Noble went and negotiated with all of the states to start charging sales tax. And here it is, 10 years after that, 2017, that Amazon finally went and did it, right? So even like 10 years ago when Barnes & Noble did it, Amazon still said, no, and they've been fighting it. So one of the questions that came up, Nancy said, I'm assuming that Amazon is paying sales tax only on products they sell, and you're correct. They are not collecting. They are not collecting. You as a seller, I'll make this crystal clear. You as a seller have to tell Amazon where you have Nexus. Once you tell them that, then they will start collecting tax for you. They remit that to you in your normal payments, and then it's your job to remit that tax to the state. Correct, Jennifer?
Yep, that's exactly it. They'll give it to you in your remittances. They'll give you the tax that they collected on your behalf. Right.
But they will not collect that tax unless you ask them to, and you cannot ask them to collect that tax until you have registered with the state to have the tax collected. And all I say to this is,
can I dispel a quick myth though right now, Jeff?
Yeah.
If you live in Florida by any chance, you'll see a lot of times people go into jail over sales tax. This is probably not going to happen to you. The only time that happens, it's probably not going to happen to you. The only time that happens is when people collect sales tax without a license. So because the state can say, this is a crime, this is fraud. You're telling your customer thinks in good faith that you're collecting sales tax on the state's behalf, sending it to the state to pay for parks and firemen and schools, but you're really just keeping it in your pocket. So people worry about jail. Don't worry about jail unless you're.
And I think the first thing is don't collect sales tax until you have actually registered in the state. So if you have gone into Amazon and you've clicked on all 39 states for collecting sales tax, and you're not remitting that to the states, you've probably got a bigger problem than if you're just not even collecting the sales tax, right?
Yes.
Now, if you haven't been collecting the sales tax, then you have to kind of, I think the way we kind of put it was, make this business decision here. You have to kind of decide what you're doing. So let me ask this question. I've been selling for 3 years. I've never collected sales tax anywhere but Illinois. How do I understand what my potential liabilities are? Can I use that inventory event detail report to go back and see my history, or like what, or let's say I don't have any inventory in Tennessee anymore, but I did at one point in time.
For sure. So yeah, you can use that. Another thing you can use is actually TaxJar has a feature for this. So you can go and connect your Amazon account to TaxJar, and we'll tell you how much sales tax you should have collected in a state. And you can go back, as far back as you have Amazon data. And so we will be able to show you that information. So you might look at California and say, crap, I should have collected $50,000. Oh no, I probably should do something.
So is that a free tool?
It comes with your TaxJar account. So TaxJar starts at $19. But you can try the 30-day free trial and then see back 60 days. So you can kind of look back 60 days and see how things go from there.
Okay, but you have to be in the paid plan to look back at your full history.
Yeah, years and years. Yes.
All right, so close your ears because you and Mark aren't going to like this. But for $20, you can essentially look back at your whole history and kind of figure out where you're at. And I don't really recommend that. I think if you're going to use a service, you use a service. But I think that I guess the point is that if you have to do that, then you probably have states that you need to be registering tax in, right? Like that's kind of what I was asking earlier about like limits. And if you're doing that much in sales and you're not collecting your states appropriately, then you probably need to be doing more. Okay, a couple questions. Let's jump into them here. If we register with a state now, will we be able to know what we owed from that state before the point? So that's kind of what we just talked about with Jennifer, that you can use a system like TaxJar to look that up. I think the information in Amazon is limited in the initial report. If you've run some kind of, as you guys all know, because you're probably running your year-end reports, it's really a pain in the ass to get year-end reports out of Amazon if you're not keeping your books up on a regular basis. So this is kind of where they've solved the problem using technology. We applaud that. We think that's awesome. All right. Assuming that Amazon is only paying sales tax for themselves. Correct. They're only paying for themselves. Craig says, if we register with a state for sales tax, then what would stop them from coming after us for other kind of taxes too? That's interesting. So what other kind of taxes, and is that a potential concern?
Yeah, there's income tax as well. So a state could want you to collect income tax. The good thing about that is, in my understanding, of course, I'm not a CPA, is that income tax nexus is a lot more strict than sales tax nexus. Sales tax nexus, like you have inventory there, you have, a delivery driver coming back and forth delivering your inventory, there's nexus. Income tax nexus, you have to have way more of a presence in the state.
Yeah, California had something really weird about that when they were in their serious budget crunch. And it was something like, if you stepped foot in the state of California for work, you had to pay income tax for the days that you were there, or something really stupid like that. And a lot of companies stopped sending their employees to California because of the mess that it made. But I haven't heard a lot of rumblings about that. It's kind of like that's what states do when they become desperate because they have screwed up their budgets. But let's not go.
Let's not go there. Let's keep it sales tax. But yeah,
so there was another question about, shouldn't Amazon just collect tax and remit it for all sellers? And I think that's one of those call your congressman. The internet's been around now for a long time. That conversation is probably at least 15 plus years old. That, the thought 15, 20 years ago was to have just a national internet sales tax. It would have been a lot easier for the country to have done that 10, 15 years ago. It'd be a lot harder for them to do that now that all the states have kind of broken all these companies, right? So 15, 20 years ago, like nobody that sold on the internet was collecting tax for anything but their state. They all were fighting Nexus. As the federal government left this as a state problem, more and more companies started kind of solving their problem state by state and started collecting taxes. And so I think the idea of a national tax is significantly harder to accomplish today than it would have been 15 years ago. So I don't see that as a reality. I don't know if you have a difference of opinion.
Not really, but so what's probably going to end up happening is some states have passed some unconstitutional laws. Once again, I'm not going to get into it, but there might be a Supreme Court case soon that could change some of this stuff. So on blog.taxjar.com, I blog about all this news from the point of view of an online seller. So, in an understandable way and advocating for online sellers. So if you ever hear about a sales tax law you're unsure about, we've probably blogged about it over there on the blog, or you can always just, email support at taxjar.com and say, hey, what's going on with this law? Is this going to happen? And we generally have a pretty good insider track on what's going on.
Yeah. So self-fulfilled. I'm a seller. I am fulfilling products out of my own warehouse in Illinois. Do I need to collect sales tax in any other state besides Illinois?
Great question. If all your business operations are in Illinois, then no, you're fine. Now, remember, Nexus is Nexus. So if you have salespeople, contractors, inventory in a warehouse that's not Amazon in another state, then yeah, you would have Nexus there. But no, you don't have kind of the major issue that an FBA seller would, where their inventory is being sent all over the country.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good thing that we never really defined when you're talking about Nexus, right? Nexus is not necessarily only defined as inventory. So if I hire an independent contractor, that could give me Nexus in a particular state. Some states have really weird rules, like I talked about with California, that if you actually travel there for business, it can be considered having Nexus. So those are other things to consider. And companies do a lot of weird things to keep Nexus from happening, right? So now I am not giving any advice whatsoever, but I've heard that you can sometimes have two corporations where your physical product business is out of one operation and your business operations are out of another, and essentially the only relationship is between these two, and then this one has the other Nexus relationship. So if you have a good tax accountant, these are the questions and conversations to have with them so they can tell you what's best for your business. All right. Question here is, my company is registered in Washington. I've shipped my items to Chicago. I don't understand where my Nexus is and which states I have to pay taxes in. I'm going to assume that you're doing this with Amazon. And Jennifer, I'll let you go ahead and answer.
Sure. So yeah, if you're doing this with Amazon, so if you have inventory sitting in Illinois for sale, that creates Nexus in the state of Illinois. So then you say you have, your business operations are in Washington, you have inventory in Illinois, then you would need to collect sales tax in both of those states.
Yep. Now, also understand, because this is, I think, the tricky part of Amazon. You've mailed all of your products to Amazon in Chicago, but Chicago is going to send that inventory to other places. So while you have never sent it anywhere, you have to look at the inventory event detail report to see where your product actually is. That's kind of the trick. Like, if there's a trick in this whole thing, that's kind of the trick in this whole thing, is that it's not simple like, oh, I mailed my products to Chicago, I have Nexus in Illinois. It's a little more complicated. All right. Nancy wants to know, how much should we owe before we contact a CPA? Is there like a dollar amount? And I think part of this goes back to, remember, you're not collecting any sales tax. So I guess the letter of the law is that you have to start collecting as soon as you have Nexus.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, the letter of the law is collected as soon as you have Nexus in a state. So you might go into TaxJar and look and say, oh man, if I been collecting sales tax, I should have collected $500 last year in Illinois. So you might in your heart say, oh my gosh, like, I know my business is only growing, I better get started with Illinois now. So that's just, once again, it's your business decision. We do have an ebook, and I can make sure y'all have the link to it later. It's kind of a long link, but it was written by a CPA, and it's called When to Register for a Sales Tax Permit. And it does have some numbers and matrices that you can look at to see maybe if it's time to collect sales tax. But
okay.
It's just it's up to you, your business decision.
Yeah, I don't know if you have access to comment, but you could just comment that right in there. Sure. Okay, so Richard says, I hear you. I may have registered state sales tax IDs with Google, but they are not collecting. How do I ensure that they do? I think you mean Amazon. But so can you kind of walk people through where in Amazon do I go to define what states I have Nexus in?
Yes, I'm putting this for you guys right now in the chat. You can go to our FBASalestax.com link, because we have an ebook that will tell you, it's in your taxes section, it's hard to say, on Seller Central. And you go in, you'll pick your state, and you'll check the boxes. And so if you use our FBA sales tax book, we'll tell you what boxes to check, because believe it or not, some states you do check local and county. Some states you don't check local and county. Some states shipping is taxable. Like if you charge your customers a $2.99 shipping charge, that's taxable. Other states, that $2.99 shipping charge is not taxable. Same with gift wrapping. I know, I'm killing you guys, but that's why I recommend our book, because it tells you everything. Just go find your state on the chart, read across, and you're done.
And that's a free ebook?
That's free ebook.
All right, awesome. And you just posted that in the group?
Yes. And make sure every once in a while something changes. So make sure you stay subscribed. We'll send you a few emails if you subscribe to the ebook, but not many. But then if something ever changes, I will send you an email say, hey, go, recheck this box in this state or whatever. It doesn't happen much, but
All right, so there we go. That is our single action item, right? Because as sellers, we need to have action items from the investment of our times. I think that's the single action item for a seller, is that if nothing less, and I didn't even know about that ebook, so it's not like we came on here to pitch that ebook. But if nothing less, you should have that ebook and possibly subscribe to it. And let's see, your link to the ebook isn't showing up, so make sure it's in the part of the comments where it says comment on Facebook as Jennifer Dunn.
Oh, I'm not even seeing that, you guys.
Scroll down on they don't see what we see, but scroll down on your live comments all the way to the bottom and you'll see where you can comment.
Okay.
Because for some reason, the stuff that comes across the screen is not working right now.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm having trouble finding this, but let me tell you, FBA Sales Tax.
Oh, I see. You actually sent it to me.
Yeah. Oh, I'll send it to you. Hey, there you go, Jeff.
FBASalestax.com.
Yep. Easy peasy.
All right, there we go. You guys should see that now.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
She sent it to me, not you guys. I didn't know you. All right, I'm glad I got it. All right, let's see where we were. This is awesome. Let's keep commenting, and we'll get some more of your questions. Okay, let's see here. Listen, so somebody in here has said, okay, well, this isn't true for me. I think the answer to that is that we're not giving any advice. We're just kind of giving suggestions and what other sellers are doing. You really need to see a certified tax specialist to get advice for your business. So, don't feel like, I don't know, this is one of those tricky things where we want to inform you, but we're not trying to direct you. We just want you to really become more educated. And thank you to the people that are kind of throwing some of the notes in terms of what they do, because that's really helpful as well. Let's see. Okay. So Richard's got a new one. He says, I have done all of this, but is there some kind of magic box that needs to be checked with Amazon that authorizes them to collect sales tax on my behalf? That is the box, right? That is the different boxes.
Yep, that's the box. And also, when they collect on your behalf, it's going to be 2.9% of the sales tax you collect. So if you collect $10 in sales tax, they'll charge you 29 cents just for the privilege of collecting your sales tax for you. I know. We all know Amazon, so everything's going to cost money.
Really? They charge you a fee to collect and give you the sales tax?
Yeah, they sure do, 2.9%.
So does that mean that that's an extra expense to me as a seller? I did not know that.
Yes, I know. It adds a lot of insult to injury to me.
So my fees just went up by having Amazon collect sales tax.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Oh, can I tell you a good thing though? A lot of states will give you a discount if you collect sales tax and you pay it on time. They'll let you keep maybe 1 to 3% of the sales tax that you collected. So you might get some money back from free money back from the state as well. So it, kind of can even out.
All right. So let's question here. Do Canadians, and we'll just call it foreigners in general, do foreigners need to collect sales tax when they're selling on FBA?
If they have sales tax nexus in the U.S. So if you're selling on U.S. FBA and you have inventory in all these different warehouses, then yes, the states, they don't care if you live the next state over or, halfway around the world. To them, you have sales tax nexus because your inventory is sitting in their state, taking up space, using the roads, using the fire department if it catches on fire. And that's their thinking.
All right. So John, I'm going to address your question directly. So John says, when is she going to tell us about TaxJar? Step 1, scare us. Step 2, sell us. I didn't bring Jennifer on here to sell at all. So if you want to learn about TaxJar, go to taxjar.com. I brought Jennifer on here because I went to a trade show. There was a lot of conversation about tax. It brought up many more questions for me than it did answers. And I met with my bookkeeper. I met with my CPA. I still had more questions about tax than I had answers. And I said, instead of me having a conversation with Jennifer on the phone, which I could do any day that I want to. Let's have a conversation and share it with everybody else. So in all honesty, this is not a pitch for TaxJar in any way, shape, or form. I'll be honest, I don't use TaxJar. I might start using TaxJar, but right now I don't use TaxJar. We do recommend TaxJar. We've been good friends with them for a long time, and we think they have a great product. But this is not a webinar of how to use TaxJar. There's lots of information at taxjar.com if you want to learn more about what their service is and how to use it. This is really it's not necessarily a scare tactic. It's more of my eyes just kind of like literally popped out of my head at this last conference and realized how many things I don't know about this part of my business. And so wanting to know more about it, I decided to share what I learned with all of you guys. So hopefully you appreciate that. And, you're learning as well. And that's what your chance is to answer questions. All right. Ryan wants to know, how hard is it to register with all these different states?
Most of the time it's pretty easy. I've written instructions on how to register with each state over on the TaxJar blog.
And that's free.
Yeah, a free blog. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm really sorry if it comes off that way. Like I'm very serious about not scaring you. So if you ever see anything that comes across as scary to you that TaxJar's put out, just let me know. Send me an email, Jennifer at TaxJar, and I'll definitely revisit it.
All right. So John's saying he wants to hear the pitch, but we're really not doing a pitch. And so you know what? Jennifer will find you in the comments and she'll let you know. But in all honesty, I guess the short pitch is they help you figure out your sales taxes and get them organized. And then they have a second service that helps you remit them to all of the states. So it's just a matter of, if you have a bookkeeper, they might be able to do this. You don't need a service. What I have found personally is that a normal bookkeeper doesn't understand Amazon. And so there's a lot of things within the Amazon world that need to be understood. And so, Jennifer, she's my go-to when it comes to these type of things. And like I said, I really just have a ton of questions and needed them answered. So, all right. Question here from T-Dot. I must have missed something. What exactly is Nexus? Okay, I think we just covered what is Nexus, and he's in the UK, so I think we covered that. We got the link up. I'm a little bit behind in the comments. Again, the link is FBASalesTax.com. That's the book. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. Stephen Smothersman is one of the best blogs. What's your blog, Steve? I don't want to get it wrong, but it's one of the best blogs in the space. So thanks for coming on. And I probably just butchered your last name, but I appreciate you being here. Let's see here. Lately, that's a nice Facebook name there. Possible to have all of these important tips in a guide or deck. This is an enormous amount of information.
Yes.
Yeah. So is that kind of what the ebook is?
Exactly. The ebook is that. And also we will link to each individual state. So that way you can see the info for your own state and you can find all that from the ebook.
Or more importantly, share that with your bookkeeper. Maybe it's worth having your bookkeeper spend 2 or 3 hours just learning about this. Tiger wants to know, so the 2.9% fee is not part of the fulfillment fees.
It's its own fee, sales tax, but it's remitted with your remittances. So it's not going to tell you, like, we're giving you this for sales tax and then this is the rest. No, It's combined. And
so Amazon so from the shopper perspective, if I go and buy a product from Jennifer and Jennifer has Nexus, then they're going to charge me tax. If I go and buy a product from Peter and Peter does not have that Nexus, they will not charge me tax.
Right.
That tax differs by state and by county, and that was all the stuff within the book and the matrix and stuff like that. And then you as a seller get that money. It goes into your your vault, your lockbox, right? Wasn't that the term at one point in time?
8 years ago now or something.
Your lockbox, and then it's your job to then send that to the state. Some states require monthly filing, some do quarterly, some do annual, some do biannual. And a lot of the states, as Jennifer said, give you bonuses. They're kind of like the credit card companies. They like you to pay on time. So
true, it is like that.
yeah. All right. So Mark says Amazon charges sales tax by the line item instead of the subtotal. So on multi-line items, the sales tax collection is off by a few cents. Thanks for sharing.
That's true. And you know what? There's some great info on the TaxJar blog about that. If you go there and search rounding, you'll see states know this. States are cool with you being a little off up to like 1 or 2% on how much you collected, because states get that.
Is this the, what was the trading places where you steal the pennies and?
Yeah, it was Office Space.
Office Space? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that, you guys.
No. Don't round. Don't. No.
Not worth it.
All right. So if you only do fulfilled by merchant, do you have Nexus in states? So I think we covered that. You do have Nexus if you have contractors or employees in the state. You still should, if you do any business in a state, you should figure out whether that gives you Nexus in that state. That's probably the easiest way to put it. Lots of thanks for the information. All right. Brent says, well, now I want to throw up. Brent, I think that that's why I wanted to have this.
I want to make someone throw up?
No, but I honestly felt the same way. Like it was really so mind blowing to me. And there was so many things that was racing through my head at Prosper that I was like, God, man, other people have to be saying the same thing. Need easy. Can I focus on other more important things? So John, that's a great question. That's why there's services like TaxJar, but TaxJar doesn't necessarily do all of it, right? You don't help people file in the states, do you?
TaxJar shows you how to file in the state.
Right, but they still have to, I still have to do the filing.
Or, well, our Autofile service, you can pay us an extra $19 per filing and we'll file for you.
Okay, so if you have enough business in a state, then that might make sense. Do you set people up in a state, or do I now have Nexus in Tennessee. Do you set that up for me, or do I have to do that on my own?
We provide free instructions for you to do it on your own, or we'll send you to a CPA who will do it for you. But
okay. So John, you just need to basically connect with somebody. All right. Do you have to register in all 50 states? So the answer is no, you don't. You only have to register in the states you have Nexus. That's the tricky part. Let's see. She appreciates this, and she's been asking questions in her own community for some time now. This has been helpful. Awesome. You can invite Jennifer into your community. I'm sure she would answer. Don't invite me. I don't know the answers. Stephen, thank you. FBA, fulltimefba.com. That's the blog I was talking about earlier.
Great blog.
Just to be clear, once you register your tax ID with Amazon on a state-by-state basis, Amazon remits the sales tax to you via your payout. Then you, as the seller, must individually pay sales taxes to each state based on their process. Thank you, Mark. Couldn't have said that better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I've caught up to everything that's in here from the questions and comments. I'm just kind of looking to see if I missed anything. If you got any more, let us know. And I don't know, Jennifer, what is like the number one question you get asked that is something we haven't covered yet? You go to a lot of trade shows and speak to a lot of sellers.
Well, one thing is a lot of people say, oh my gosh, isn't this just going to take all my time and all my money? Well, first of all, a lot of times it's free. You don't pay this out of your pocket. You collect it from your sellers and give it to them. And usually once you get started with sales tax, like getting started, like actually getting over the hump of getting your brain ready to get started is the hardest part. Once you're doing it, it becomes like anything else. It becomes like, if doing the quarterly taxes, any kind of like crappy administrative hassle that you have to do because you're a business owner. So getting started really is the hardest part. And I think that's something that people really need to hear.
As an Amazon seller, how often do you recommend that I kind of reevaluate my Nexus? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, do I need to do it monthly, quarterly? Like, how often is Amazon moving people's inventory around?
I would say probably, depending on your sales. So if you're pretty small and just getting started, quarterly, twice a year. But if you're making significant sales, I would definitely start looking monthly, just because that's the way it goes. They move.
So part of your monthly administration, if you're a growing seller, is to look at your inventory detail report and potentially update your Nexus as necessary. All right. So Deborah, if you ship to 3 FBA locations, how do you know which FBA location is shipping the product to the customer? Okay. So that's the inventory detail report, right? The inventory detail report, it's not who's shipping it to the customer. It's where you have inventory. And then that creates the nexus that requires you to register with the state. Then Amazon starts collecting the taxes, and then any purchase that occurs in that state. So it doesn't have to be a one-to-one relationship. It's not like I live in Illinois and I bought your product in Illinois. Jennifer lives in Georgia. She bought your product in Illinois. It's anyone who buys a product that lives in Illinois has to collect tax, right? Did I explain that right?
Collect the tax from them, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have Nexus in the state, you're selling a taxable product in that state, you collect sales tax from any buyer in that state.
Yep. And so Mark wants to know, California collects tax based on county and city, and so Amazon does that as well, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot of states. Most states are like that. So, yeah, Amazon thankfully has a robust sales tax engine. So as long as you check the right boxes when you set up the sales tax, you're good.
So the answer is Amazon could do all of this for us. They just don't.
They don't have to. So they're not going to.
And the reason they don't, just so you guys know, is that they don't want to take on the liability, right? So it's a liability issue, and so that's why they kind of wash their hands of it.
Good excuse. They can say, well, we don't know what your eBay sales are. We don't know what your Shopify sales are. Why should we do this? So, they have a lot of, political clout and things they can throw around and say.
Yeah. So John says the tricky part is when does sales volume need to register? I think that's where you need to kind of so if I'm going to give you my recommendation as a seller, and I have nothing to do with tax and TaxJar, we always have to give that disclaimer. I want to constantly know where I have Nexus. Where I have Nexus means I have liability. Then I can start making more rational decisions about when do I actually want to register. But if I don't know that I have Nexus, I don't even know what my potential liabilities are. So here, let me ask you this question. It came into my head right now. I send my product to Tennessee, and now it's 2017. And Tennessee has no more of my inventory. Am I still required to collect sales tax?
If you're still registered for a sales tax permit, you're required to collect sales tax. So if you think your inventory is never going to Tennessee again, you can cancel that sales tax permit. But if you think it probably will go back to Tennessee, a lot of times it's just easier to stay collecting.
Okay. Yeah, and so John, I think you're right. It's fluid and it's not a set number, meaning that sellers just have to understand their own liability. That's what it comes down to, is what's your liability with this, and are you comfortable with it? All right. Another question. Here is something interesting that I was told by BOE. I don't know what BOE is, but who?
California.
Oh, okay. Since my Nexus is in Orange County, I pay 8% for those sales made within the county. However, if the sale is made to another county within the state, the sales tax is 7.5%. So basically, there are 2 different taxes within the state.
Yeah, that's true. Thankfully, Amazon takes care of that for you. So
so that's where you don't have to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, thank goodness.
All right. Can you please share your opinion on anonymous voluntary disclosure program that the multi-state tax commission has? I don't even know what that is. So let's hear.
There was a speaker at Prosper, that Richard Cram from Prosper, he was with the multi-state tax commission. So yeah, I would, you can always be anonymous. That's the thing. You can call your state anonymously. Say, look, I'm an anonymous person, go to the library and call them and see what you want to do. But I think you need to be armed with that knowledge first. You need to know how much you would owe before you go to the state and start, turning yourself in. And I would probably talk to a CPA first, and make sure you talk to a sales tax CPA, not just an income tax preparer. Sales tax CPA is like the neurosurgeon of taxes. You only go to them when you have a sales tax problem, nothing else. Income tax CPA, that's like your general guy who will help you with everything else.
Yeah, and just to tell you, I did it all with my bookkeeper, but my bookkeeper happens to kind of focus on Amazon. So, she has a little bit more knowledge around Amazon. She works with multiple Amazon sellers. So I think it kind of comes down to what's your knowledge of the Amazon business and e-commerce and online retail, as opposed to, just talking to the guy who normally does your taxes.
Exactly.
From a customer's perspective, have you heard of sellers' volumes decreasing after they start to collect sales tax? So are shoppers buying from one seller over another based on tax?
You know what? I don't know about that. Now, there was a study, I think in Ohio, that said, yes, when people started collecting, or when Amazon, it was about Amazon, when Amazon started collecting sales tax, people would go buy their big purchases at Best Buy. So, but now Amazon's collecting sales tax from everybody. So I would think anecdotally that now that people are kind of used to paying sales tax on Amazon, that your sales, your third party sales are not going to suffer that much. But, I can't tell you. That's something you should definitely look at for yourself and, share that if you do see that your sales drop or don't drop.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that I think the general attitude that I live in Illinois, they collect sales tax in Illinois. I'm used to paying sales tax. So for me, it would just be a bonus if I bought it from somebody and they didn't collect sales tax.
Exactly.
That's a great question, though. Thank you. John, will you just call John after this? He wants to know what you guys do. So give everybody your 30-second elevator pitch, because John is not letting it. Does John work for you?
No, I don't know a John. We don't have a John. All right, guys. So TaxJar, we will connect with all the channels that you sell on: Amazon, eBay, Shopify, wherever you sell. Or if you're a developer, you've built your own shopping cart, we'll connect with that too. And we will pull in all your sales. We'll slice and dice that info. We will, like if you live in California where you got the 7.5% here and the 8% over here, then we will take care of that for you. We'll show you exactly what to put on each little line of your sales tax filing. Or if you have an extra $19, you never want to see this again, we'll file it for you with TaxJar Autofile. We really save people about 5 hours per taxable period. That was an old survey we did. We went back and redid that survey now that we have 8,000 customers, and same thing. We save people about 5 hours per taxable period. So I guess it's just kind of a nice round number that we save people.
Awesome. So I'm going to call it. It's been an hour. We just spent an hour talking about tax.
I spent all day talking about tax.
Hour of your life. Thank you guys for those that have stuck around. Hopefully you guys found this to be enjoyable. If you did, there's a way for you to click in here to get notified when we go live again. We do Facebook Lives on a regular basis to try to bring you guys information. So make sure you click the button that says Get Notified for Facebook Live. And that will help ensure that you know when we go live if you don't get an email from us. Also, take this and share it. So take this and click the share button. Share it with your communities that might be interested in kind of learning more about tax. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you as customers. And if you're not, we welcome you to be one. And thank you guys for hanging out with us today. So make sure you take a second and like, comment, and share the post, and click the notifications. Talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.